This is episode 39 of the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Kade, and today I'm speaking with author J.D. Harrison. Like most authors, J.D. Harrison wrote a lot of stories as a kid. She even had some promise as an advanced English student, flourishing in creative writing classes. But horses are her one true love. So J.D.'s studies and career focused on them for most of her adult life. J.D. traveled all across the United States, working with and learning about horses as individuals and as a collective. There's little she hasn't dabbled in, though most of her work focused on caring for the horses rather than competing herself. In 2015, J.D. decided to bite the bullet and give NaNoWriMo a shot. Her intent was to elaborate on a snippet she had written decades ago, using her experience with the jousting community to really flesh things out. J.D.'s main character, Josephine Bowen, quickly took the reins, which resulted in 120,000 words written in 1 month, and one heck of a writing hangover. Josephine and the jousting company she is a part of have kept J.D. busy ever since. At least when she's not at the barn, because horses will always come first. Now, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast, a podcast featuring interviews with equestrian authors who love all things horses and writing about them. In each episode, you'll hear inspirational stories from horsebook authors, including writing advice and marketing tips to help you write your very own horsebook. If you're an author, aspire to be an author, or simply love horsebooks, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Kade, and creative writing makes my spurs jingle. Hi everyone, welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight. I'm Carly Kade, and today I'm so excited to speak with J.D. Harrison. Hi J.D., welcome to the show.
Good morning, Carly. How are you?
I am great. I'm so excited to talk to a fellow horse lover and author of books, and it's always fun. And I always love starting these conversations off with learning a little bit more about how your love affair with horses began. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm sure, like most horse lovers, I was kind of born that way, where you just innately are drawn to them. But I had it fed at a very early age. My grandmother and uncle had a show Arabian stallion
Ooh.
and some brood mares. So my actual very first concrete memory is he would put me on the back of the brood mares when he would lead them in from the pasture. So that's my first memory, was holding onto a handful of mane and just withers in front of me. And so that's that was kind of the beginning.
Oh my goodness, that is like it's awesome to be born with it, but then also have access to it at
hmm
such a young age. So, but you also have your own herd of furry friends these days. Can you tell us a little bit about your furry family?
Well, I have one horse at this time. I recently lost my pony, so I'm down to just one now,
I'm
of
so
my own.
sorry.
However, I have a herd of like 40 that I take care of. So I'm kept pretty busy with them.
And they're Morgan horses, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
hmm
So are you like the farm manager? Like, how did 40 Morgan horses come into your life?
It kind of was one of those kismet things where you're just in the right place at the right time. Another friend of mine was training for her, and I went out to hang out with my friend. And while I was there, I was grooming one of her horses, and she was like, I have a lot of horses and they could use some attention. Would you like to come out and give them some attention? And I was like, sure. And I think I'm probably the longest running employee there. So I've been there for 8 years now.
Mhm.
And I'm mainly there to make sure everybody stays mannerly. She has some breeding stallions, so we have to make sure that they're well handled and gentlemen. So that's kind of my job.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're like the resident, making sure they continue minding their manners and remember, what they're supposed to do, and you groom them and you organize the farrier and sort of like a manager of the herd.
Exactly. All the feeding, and luckily I don't have to do much of the labor anymore. We recently got a farmhand
Mm.
who's ended up being kind of my understudy. So
Mhm.
that's been really great because it's getting harder and harder to find people who want to work that hard.
Mm.
And, blood, sweat, and tears at like, people like we do. But it's getting harder to find young people that want to do that.
Yeah, times certainly have changed, haven't they?
Hmm.
But that sounds pretty much like a dream job to me, managing the
It's
horses.
amazing.
I know, and so much inspiration as a writer of horse books, I imagine. Speaking of horses, I wanted to talk to you about your books because I, had a lot of fun galloping around your website and composing the questions for our interview. So you have over a decade of experience squiring at championship tourney and a long love affair with all things medieval and Renaissance. So you love
Hmm.
bringing to life the unorthodox culture of jousters and their horses. This is so
Yes.
fascinating. Tell us how you got into jousting and what does a squire of a tourney do? And, how has all this inspired your books? Like, this is cool.
So I've always been fascinated and had gone to Renaissance fairs everywhere I went, even when I was chasing the horses around the country.
Hmm.
But I never really introduced myself to the jousters because they were busy, they were working, and I didn't want to monopolize time. I had enough other horses in my life. I didn't feel like I needed to, insert myself. But I was very lucky. My husband, at the time, my boyfriend, was like, "You really need to go to this Highland Games that's here." I had recently moved to Colorado and was learning the lay of the land and where to find everything. He
Hmm.
said, "We've got to go." So we went up there, and there were jousters. And I was really excited because even though they do spend a lot of time doing crowd interaction, there's also downtime in between the competition portion.
Hmm.
So we could go back behind the scenes to the barn and meet them, which is I'm much more comfortable in the barn anyway. So I was like, yay. So I went down there because there was a horse and rider that I very much admired. Um, Out of everyone there, they had their teamwork was amazing, and it was quite clear how much they fed each other. And you always like to see that in a horse and rider, how they're kind of symbiotic.
Hmm.
And so I was like, I must go introduce myself and pet this horse. Because, as much as I love the knights, it's really the horses are the first draw for me. And I went back there and introduced myself and said, "Hey, I'm a professional horse person. Um, you know, I'd like to meet your stallion if that's okay." And he was like, "Yeah, sure, here you go." 10 minutes later, I was brushing, and then I was like, "So if you need help next year, let me know." And the next year, I showed up and was there for all 3 days. And um, he was very impressed because usually he has to tell people what to do. And I was like, "Look, just get out of my way. I'm
Hmm.
good. My husband will help you with the armor. I'm here to take care of your horses. So go, shoo, go be pretty." Um, so yes, that's kind of how I made myself a spot and walked right in, and they opened the door and said, "Here you go."
Oh,
So
that's so
that's been it.
magical. Yeah,
It
so
is.
you were interested in jousting and then you went to this event and you went to the barn
Mm-hmm,
where you're comfortable and you ended up, being a behind the scenes sort of groom helping the jousters
mm-hmm,
prepare, right? So
mm-hmm.
and then obviously it grew from there because now so is the squiring is the caretaking of the jousters horse and getting them ready, is that right?
So I do also help on the field during the competition. Sometimes, maybe when the guys get knocked off, somebody's got to go get the horse, bring them back over to the mounting block, get them back on. I'm usually that person. If somebody gets tired or has to get off, take a breather, go, walk around or get a drink, I hold horses. But I also help them armor up
Mhm.
because when they're on the field at a tournament in particular, it's a very long time to be out there on the field.
Mhm.
So you have to have extra hands because these guys aren't super mobile once they put their armor on.
I'm sure. Is it as
Um,
heavy as it looks?
so it's not as heavy as it looks, but it is heavy.
Okay.
You're looking at anywhere from, on the low end, the guys who go minimalist, you're looking at about 75 pounds. But upward from there, these guys are looking at 125 because some of these guys are big strapping dudes. So
Mhm.
the more armor you have to put on those big dudes, the
Mhm.
bigger the suit gets.
Mhm. Wow. And okay, so you do all of the things that they, kind of need you to do. You're kind of like you're
Mhm.
like there like a groom at a show, sort of, is sort of what it's like.
Exactly. Well, and that's why there was the correlation because my career in horses started as a groom for upper level event riders. So
Mm.
I'm used to being the one who anticipates needs and
Hmm.
gets the right equipment on the right animal and make sure that everybody's functioning and where they need to be on time. So,
Cool. It sounds like a perfect fit. And then,
oh yeah.
so do you have to wear any like special medieval outfit while you're doing
Yes.
this? Oh, you do?
Absolutely.
Tell us about
Yes, yes. Well, in my case, I kind of adapted some things because I don't mind wearing the girly stuff, but you really don't want all the skirts and the poofiness getting in the way.
Sure.
Um, and frankly, as much as the bodices are nice, nobody really wants a boob burn from exposing things that don't normally see the light of day. So, I tend to not dress quite as extravagantly
Mhm,
as some of the people who are working in other parts of the Ren Fair.
mhm.
You're going to be a horse napkin. You don't really want to have all the expensive lace and linen and velvet turning into a horse napkin.
Right on. So it's more like maybe like a peasant shirt and jeans or something, or
Well, I
paddock
usually
boots?
wear breeches. I usually
Breeches.
wear breeches, and I'll wear my paddock boots and half chaps because those are comfortable for me. Um, my husband went so far as to actually get some half chaps made that looked like Renaissance boots, but I don't have that kind of money laying around. I spend it all on my horse. So,
Well, yes, we're all horse poor, like in this
yeah,
world.
exactly. Like everything I have is on clearance, and then they get whatever they want.
That's
So,
for sure. We do spoil our horse babies. That's so
yes,
great.
we do.
So all of this experience, like this leads us right into your book. So tell us how this experience, with the jousting world inspired your work with the Gallant Hearts series. Like, I want to hear all about your books.
Well, the books were supposed to be a challenge for National Novel Writing Month.
NaNoWriMo.
They were not supposed to turn into what they did, which is currently at 5 books. I'm working on book 6 and it's planned out till 9. So, and I know there are going to be more characters that interject themselves and want to be written about. Um, but it was supposed to be a writing exercise because I wasn't sure if I could do 50,000 words in a month.
Hmm.
Um, I was pretty sure I could, but not 100% sure.
Hmm.
Um, I picked a piece that I had written well before I got into the jousting. Is a piece I'd written in a notebook, just kind of a little piece of a story about a young woman who went to work with a jousting troupe and met a rescue horse, and
Mm.
how the immediate draw that she felt to help this horse. And I was like, I can elaborate on this, particularly now that I have all this experience in the jousting world. So I said, okay, here we go. We're going to jump into this. I blew the goal out of the water. In 1 month, I wrote 120,000 words. I was a human jello by the time I got done. But when the girl with the lance in the armor tells you that you're going to keep going, you keep going, because otherwise she will bludgeon you in your sleep,
Hmm.
which is kind of what happened. Um, and from there, it originally again was supposed to be 1 book, but there were so many things that came up in the first book that I was like, I have to answer these questions. I have to continue this progression.
Hmm.
It was not supposed to be romance at first, but the characters had their own mind about that and ran with it. So it became so much more than I anticipated, and I regret none of it. It's been amazing. It's a huge journey. And I had written some other novels before, but these ones have absolutely taken on their own life.
Oh, that's amazing. And I love, well, first of all, what did you say? Over 100,000 words in a month? That is like mind
I did
boggling.
120,000 words.
That's incredible. So you
Yes,
were
yeah,
at your computer every day writing double what
yes,
NaNoWriMo suggests that you write, which is
yes.
incredible. I
Hmm.
tried NaNoWriMo once, which is every year in November. It's a competition where people get together and they're write the first drafts of their books in a month. 50,000 words is the goal. And I've only I only ever got to 30,000. So 120,000 is incredible. So way to go. I mean, obviously you were meant to be a writer, but I also loved how you said the characters kind of told you what to do. Like I have that,
Absolutely.
yeah, I have that same experience. Like they're just talking through me. I'm just like the medium,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
they dictate where it goes. And I love that you just said that you have that experience too.
Dictation is 100% the way it goes.
Mhm.
I try sometimes when I'm laying in bed, I try to go, okay, where's the story going next? And, you know, even though I can have those thoughts, when I sit down at the keyboard and I start typing,
Mhm.
whatever they want to say is what comes out. It may be entirely different from where I thought it was going. I have like an end goal for them to get to. I have a
Mhm.
couple of little hit points along the way, but the rest of it's all them.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing that that's your experience. I have that experience too. So, do you have a copy of the first book in the Gallant Hearts series there with you? Can you hold it up for those
Dun,
watching us on
dun.
YouTube? Beautiful.
This is actually a photo. I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but
Mhm.
this is a photo of one of my friends who is a jouster and a lady knight, which is what this book is about to start with. So we actually got to put a picture of her on the cover. We are rebranding them because I got a good cover artist.
Mhm.
And when I got the cover artist, well, don't judge a book by its cover, but people started picking up book 3 and going, "Oh, what's this?" And I'm like, "No, no, you really want to read book 1 first." So we're working on a rebrand. But it is very nice to be able to put your friend on the cover.
Well, it's beautiful. I mean, it obviously points toward Renaissance and the jousting discipline. And so, talk a little bit about why you decided to rebrand. So, what I'm hearing is you're rebranding book 1 and 2 and keeping book 3, 4, 5 the way they are.
Yes, I picked up a cover artist for book 3.
Hmm.
I kickstart my novels. So it started out with me going, I'm just going to see if this thing has legs and people want to read it.
Hmm.
So I spent a minimal amount, mostly on editor, to try and get book 1 done.
Hmm.
Um, and then from there, I was like, oh, look, it is growing legs and it is a thing and people want to read it. So I'm going to continue. Book 2 also was I had a little bit of help with somebody helping with Photoshop, but not it wasn't a professionally done cover.
Hmm.
I put on book 3 and then all of a sudden everybody was, "What is this? Oh, it looks amazing." And so book 3, 4, and 5 have a consistent look. And they look like they belong on the shelf together.
Hmm.
Book 1 and 2 now look like the odd man out.
Oh,
So,
and that's great. It's interesting that you mentioned that because you can rebrand and recover your books at any time, and
mhm,
often, even if there's nothing wrong with the cover, authors will refresh them just to give the book a new look for perhaps a
mhm,
new audience or a new time frame in within the year. And I know that you have the whole series over there behind your shoulder. I am so
would you like
curious.
me to grab it? I can grab it.
I am curious right now to see the difference between the 2 since we're talking about
Yep.
that, yeah.
Let me grab them. It's a lot of words.
It's amazing. So what do your books average? They look like they're more than 50,000, like 80,000 or more.
Oh no. So we ended up at 118,000 for book 1
Mhm.
after edits. And then at this point with book 5, I think we were at in the range of 200.
Oh, wow.
So
These are
this is
long books. Yeah.
this is book 1, and that's book 5.
Wow.
So as we were saying about the rebrand, I only have the test covers because we're still trying to figure out coloring and
Mhm.
how they're going to print.
Okay, so I do see the difference, like the color's a little bit more vibrant and you went with like a symbol or something?
So this is actually the shield that represents the company.
Mhm.
And then as we go on, this one's not finished being rebranded. It is going to be fixed up at some point. This is book 2. So this is another knight's arms. Book 3 will have another knight's arms, but we haven't finished doing the center image yet. And then this one is where the hero and heroine are absolutely together. So we put both of their shields on it. And then we moved on to a different knight for book 5.
I
So
see.
it just kind of it's a much easier way to identify which book you're looking at.
Mhm.
If you're familiar with the contents of the book, you go, oh, that's so and so, without having to look at it. And then when they're on the shelf together, they all look like they go together
Hmm.
instead of like two disparate series.
Yeah, and that's so smart of you to do, and it's like, and that's sort of like how it goes with first in series. Like you have to kind of get your momentum to figure out how you want them to look. I'm actually going through
Absolutely.
I love this conversation. I'm actually going through a rebrand with my books too, to do exactly what you're talking about. They look similar, but the
Hmm.
font is different on my first book,
Yeah.
the third book. So I'm like, syncing up the fonts and making sure everything on the spine looks the same and kind of redoing the back matter. And it's so cool that we have the freedom to do that. And I'm assuming you're an independently published author, which
Yes.
is why you have the power to do this, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. And thank you for showing us all those covers, because I think that is particularly for authors that are just starting out or aspiring authors, this is a great
Oh
dialogue
yeah.
to have, to kind of see how this can go, to know you can do it, but then also
Hmm.
to understand the continuity of having your series kind of all in the same vein. And I like that you went with the shields and the symbols on the
Hmm.
shields in order to determine which book is which. And I see them over your shoulder there too, on your wall, which is very cool.
Yes, that one, the company shield, we decided to put up here in the living room with the other stuff. I have the other shields because I actually hand paint them
Oh wow.
before to when we photograph them to put them on the cover. So I have to go through all that work to do them. So at the very least, I'm going to display them because they look cool.
That's really neat. And then do you design the symbol yourself, and you do
Hmm.
all of that? That's incredible.
Yes. Mhm.
Oh, cool. So, and I'm assuming that each one has its own meaning attached to the character.
Yes.
Okay.
So the thing with the main shield here that has the double-headed eagle on it, the jousting company is run by two brothers.
Mhm.
So it was meant to symbolize, it's all one company, but it's the two brothers that are
Wow.
running it.
That's so cool. I love
Yeah.
that. So obviously your knowledge of the how the jousting companies work and the behind the scenes sort of stuff like really helped inspire you to
Oh, for
create
sure.
to create your world. That's really cool. And I also really like this too. In your bio it says that keeping chivalry and romance alive will never grow old. Will you talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on chivalry and romance?
So there's more to it than just holding open a door for a lady or any of those things. It's really a whole way of life. Building other people up, being there for other people. One of the themes throughout this is that this jousting troop is not just a group of people who work together, but it becomes a family. As
Mm,
much time as they have to spend together training and being on the road, it really bonds them all. So it becomes kind of a how can we help other people? How can we add some of this energy to other people? So it's really not about just what you have, but what do you give others?
mhm,
That is has been an overwhelming theme with any of the really good jousters I've worked with, is that they really enjoy giving that energy that they carry into their own lives to other people. You see them doing charity work. You see them going to visit hospitals. You see them, and we cover all of that in the books as well. Um, so none of this is actually based on anybody I know. It's more in the spirit of the thing. I did memorialize a few horses in here. None of them have the same names, but the stallion in particular that I talked about that I first met and drew me into the jousting world, he gets heavily used in here for one of the horse characters. So,
oh, I love that. Well, and speaking of fiction, that's what we do. We don't write necessarily about people or things, but we write about like where our experience of life kind of
hmm
influences like how the fictional characters develop, which
hmm
is great.
yep,
And I love that philosophy about the chivalry and never growing old, and that it's infused inside of everything. That's a great way to live life.
it
Obviously,
is.
yeah, and you're sharing that message through your work, which is even better. It's like putting the message
One
out
of
there.
the one of the things that kept me going on this series was I had so many people from book one who felt recharged to chase their own dream.
Oh.
Because this is a big dream she's chasing. She's giving up a lot to do it. She's definitely deviating from the normal path, and she's taking a big risk. Well,
Mhm.
not only with her physical safety, but with where her career could be going. Instead, she's chasing this. So it's inspiring in a way that like tells people, hey, you should recognize your own dreams and feed that part of yourself as well. So the fact that it's lit other people up has been one of the overwhelming things that keeps me going.
Oh, that is so special and so great. It's like the readers feed you and you feed the readers back and forth with this message and getting that kind of feedback. That is so wonderful. And let me ask, what time frame are your books set in? Is it in the past? Is it present day jousting? Like
They're modern day.
modern
Modern
day?
day.
Very
Yes.
cool.
So there are there are several, there's actually quite a few different schools of jousting.
Hmm.
But for the most part, when you go to the Renaissance Fair, most people see theatrical jousting.
Hmm.
So, not to discount those guys' athleticism because it takes a lot of training to fall off without hurting yourself. Um, and a lot of courage to do that as well because most people aren't voluntarily going to fall off.
Right.
Our whole goal is to stay on.
Hmm.
But these guys that I'm writing about are actually full contact jousters. So the only way anybody falls off is if you get hit that hard. So this is really a woman going into a sport where she's competing against men who are heavier and bigger than her. She's a tall woman, but she's not particularly broad. And so she has these guys that she's jousting against. And so it really becomes a matter of will and, effort rather than just her physical ability.
Like she really has to. What I'm hearing is practice the skill, to
Yes.
make up for her body mass.
Yes, exactly. She has to want it really badly. The one thing that did help her was that she was already a horse person.
Mm,
So I actually got to bring in some of my other love, which my original love was 3-day eventing.
mm,
So she was originally an eventer. So certainly she's not unfamiliar with taking risks and doing things that are an adrenaline rush, the possibility of getting hurt, but she still does it because she loves it.
Oh, that is so great. And I love this. It's like a message of the power and strength of women in partnership with their horse, so
Absolutely.
that is so cool. So I wanted to ask you this too. I mean, you are a writer. I mean, 120,000 words in a month. Your books are longer. Like I think most average I write romance. My books are on like 80,000 words. So
Yes.
you write big longer books. So do you have a special way you write or a special time to write? Like how do you set yourself up for success in getting the words on the page?
So my system is not so much a system, it's just writing whenever I can.
Mm,
I write on my phone sometimes. It's just if I am sitting there waiting for my husband for 10 minutes and I'm at a spot where I can kind of, keep things moving, then I'll just sit on my phone. And thank goodness for the internet and being able to have things on cloud because then you can just pass things along and forward them to the next, to add them to the document.
mhm.
Uh, thank goodness for that. Otherwise, I would be at a loss. But I write on my phone, I write on a tablet, I write on my laptop, I write at home on my desktop. Thank God for a very understanding husband who is twice a widower
Oh,
between the
wow.
horses and the writing. He's like, so when will I see you, dear? And I'm like, well, I love you, but you're going to have to feed yourself tonight. So it's actually, I think I overdid for a little while. And
Mm,
right now I'm struggling to get book 6 written, which I did not expect because it's a very dynamic book.
mhm.
So I thought there would be a lot of energy and it would keep me going and I'd be very excited about it. And I am, but it's been very hard to get myself into the zone and stay there.
Hmm.
So I can usually get a scene done and then I find myself for several days being distracted and that kind of thing. I need to get back into a rhythm.
Mm,
Um, but typically, when I was at high production, I would work at the barn, pick up my husband. If he was working late, I would just sit at a coffee shop and write while I was waiting for him.
mhm,
If he got off on time, then I would come home and I would take a nap.
mhm.
And then I would, because you've worked physically, then your body's like, look, I may be a little too tired to put together thoughts.
Mhm.
So then I would take that nap, and then I would get up, have dinner, and then I would write. And I would write until a little bit later because I already got in a little bit of a nap. So
Mm.
I knew I was still going to get in all of my writing time or all of my sleep.
Mhm.
I'm not a very good person if I don't get all my sleep.
Oh, I don't think any of us are. So I think, when I read the responses to your questions, you said that you would get up at 11 and sometimes write through the evening because you're most productive
Yes.
at night. So you write
Yes.
best at night.
Yes.
And how many hours would you say when you were at your most productive were you spending a day writing, do you think?
I would say when I was writing the 120,000 words in a month, I was writing, it was a full-time job,
Mhm.
and then some. I write relatively quickly once I'm in the zone, but sometimes it's hard, if you're tired or something like that, to get the flow going again. Once it's
Absolutely.
going and you've opened the valve on the dam, the words just, and I'm just struggling to keep up.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling. And it has to be when you have energy and you're not tired. And I think so the nap
Hmm.
evening structure works really well. And
Yes.
then, I wanted to circle back to something that you said that you were having a hard time being energized around book 6, and I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of authors do experience that
Yes.
that feeling. Can you share a little bit about why you think that's happening, and then maybe some of your strategies to work around that, which is mostly just sitting down and doing the work, right? That's always the hardest
Yes.
part, is just sitting down. But why do you think you're having this experience with book 6?
So a lot of things hit me. Normally, I go into NaNoWriMo, and that's my time. During the summer, I'm busy doing horse things,
Hmm.
as we all are. We're taking advantage of the weather, the whole 9 yards. So I am less productive during the summer. I'm still writing, but not as much.
Hmm.
But I try to take advantage of the days of poor weather to really focus on getting that done, because
Hmm.
I'm not going to go out and spend all day freezing my tuchus off. So what ended up happening here is November ended up being kind of an emotional. I had a lot of things going on in my life that were emotionally draining me. And then I lost my dog, my old dog. Then I lost my pony just recently. So every time I start to get a little momentum, something emotional is coming along and draining me.
Hmm.
I wish I could channel all that and push it into the books, because that's usually a good catharsis for me.
Hmm.
And I am still writing. I'm just not writing on the novel like I would like to be.
Hmm. And that
Um,
makes so much sense. I mean, life happens, and that's the hardest thing I
yes.
think sometimes about being a creative, is that it takes a lot of emotional energy to get words on the page and write something that makes sense and that touches people. So like when you're feeling drained or tired or dealing with something as difficult as losing a pet, and I mean that is so hard. I get it, and and I think where I'm going with this is that it's normal to get a little stopped and stuck, and kind of have to like force yourself to go, but I think that's
Yes.
normal. And I that's the reason why I wanted to bring it up, because writing is not an easy thing. It's very emotional, and it takes a lot of energy to generate. So w- what you're saying is normal, and life happens, and you gotta allow yourself some slack, and it's okay.
Absolutely.
And book 6 will come when it's ready, and I think
Hmm.
it does show up when it's ready, and then you're just taking some time to work things through. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I completely agree. And thankfully, I have very understanding readers.
Well, and I'm sure your readers are rabid. Like, let's talk about your readers. Like, how do you reach your readers? Like, how do you get the word out about this? And I'm like completely assuming that these books are just as fascinating for someone who doesn't have a deep background in jousting to check out. So like, how do you get the word out about your books?
I do most of my stuff on social media. I'm I'm very much about the personal connection. So at this point, my numbers are low enough that I can very much focus on feeding my readers and keeping them connected and in the loop. Even if I'm not giving them the story,
Mhm.
I'm still feeding them, oh, this thing came up today and inspired me. And so they're still excited and still invested.
Mhm.
Sometimes they'll make a comment which will feed into something in the story.
Oh,
So
cool.
they enjoy being part of that process. I find I produce about a book a year
Mm,
as kind of the average.
that's
Um,
great.
Yeah, considering how big they are.
Yeah.
Um, so, the fact that I'm juggling two very big passions, it's definitely a juggling act. Because certainly the horses aren't going anywhere. That's
Mm-hmm.
not going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
But I spend a lot of time talking to them on social media. I have a fan group, and almost every week, I try to do a reading,
Mm-hmm.
so that way they can actually hear how I would read the story, because we all read stories differently.
Mm-hmm.
There may be inflection where I wouldn't put it, or that kind of thing, which is genuinely why I don't put people on the covers of my books. Is I get very upset when I read a book and what I see on the cover looks nothing like who I'm seeing when I read the story.
Your vision, I completely agree with that. That's why the covers of my books are silhouetted, so I don't
Exactly.
interfere with the person that my readers are envisioning. Because yeah, I'm the same way. Like if there's a person on the cover of a book that I'm going to read, I will go into the book with that there, but that's not the person I envision. So it's like everybody's
Yes.
imagination works differently. So I'm excited to hear that you share that too. So and all your books are the symbols, and then people's
Yes.
imagination can develop the characters. That's really cool.
Exactly. All of our life experiences feed into that. And we all have
Hmm.
such different life experiences. And what one person will find attractive, somebody else won't. So
Hmm.
I'm going to
Yeah.
let you fill in the blanks.
Yeah, it's like the movie reel of your own mind based on your own,
Exactly.
preferences and life
Hmm.
experiences. That's so cool. And then your fan group, is that based is that a Facebook group where fans can
Yes.
find you?
Yes.
Very
Hmm.
could. And it sounds like you're very interactive with your readers, and I think that's such a great thing. And there's a book out there somewhere called, like, I don't remember exactly what it is, but basically the premise of the book is that all you need to be successful in like a business, writing books or anything, is to have 1,000 rabid fans. Is really all you
Hmm.
need to create momentum for your books. So it's
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
like actually having a small fan base is a good thing. Not a small fan base, but like a very engaged, like 1,000 engaged fans is what you need
Exactly.
for success. Yeah.
I'm building numbers slowly, and I think that a lot of people in equestrian fiction have that same problem, because we don't really have a unified place to promote. And
Hmm.
it's not like you can just jump out there on, say, a romance group, because it's a very niche market.
Hmm.
And when I add in the jousting, it's even more of a niche. So I run into the common, oh, it must be a historical fiction, and I'm like, no, it's not.
Hmm.
So there's all these things that you have to get through all of that to get to the reader. What I tend to focus on is retention.
Hmm.
So if I can potato chip somebody in with book one,
Hmm.
now that I'm this far along in the series, about 4 times a year, I do it's free on Kindle. Would you like to give it a shot? Risk free.
Hmm.
And then I'm looking for people to read that one and go, I must have more.
Oh, that's very smart. That's a great
Mhm.
strategy. And that's the beautiful thing about having a series too. Like if someone like book
Yes.
one, they're generally gonna continue on with the series and keep supporting your work. So that's very smart. And you're also a member of, I've talked to a couple other members of the group. You're also a member of Authors with Altitude group, which I love. You
Yes.
guys partner up to reach readers too. And you all have horses in your books, but you write across genres. So can you tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that group and what you guys do to support each other?
So Laura Hargis and I have been best friends since I moved to Colorado.
Mm.
It was one of those sister from another mother kind of thing. And we've been besties for a long time. We've seen each other through all the ups and downs. And I met Julie going to some conventions locally,
Mhm.
where I was going to feed I'm thinking about becoming an author.
Mm.
And so I was trying to get some education and some support and that kind of thing. So I started going to conventions where they had panels from authors and writers and people who were self-publishing. And I wanted to inure myself, get into that community and be part of it.
Mhm.
And I had met Julie because she has a marvelous series of books that have horses in them. And so, of course, I went, horses? What? And so I introduced myself, and we talked for a couple of years. But when I went to springboard to actually being a novelist, she was the one that was like, dude, if I can do it, you can do it. She talked me off the ledge whenever I had panic attacks that, oh my God, what am I doing? It's all going to fail.
We all do that.
We all do. And
Mhm.
so having somebody to do that was an integral part of my journey. I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't had friends that were like, yeah, you can do the thing. I did the thing. You can do the thing.
Mm-hmm. You found your
So
tribe. You found your tribe. You did the right
exactly.
thing. You immersed yourself. Yep.
Exactly. And so Julie and I got together that way. And then Laura started writing her books. And Julie was like, oh, we should totally all get together. And then Laura tends to be kind of the organizer of the group.
Mm-hmm.
She says, hey, I found this thing. We should go and sell books here.
Mm-hmm.
And because we all have books that are a little bit thematic, they're not exactly the same. And Julie has a much more diversified portfolio than we do. She's written in several other genres aside from just books with horses in them.
Mm-hmm.
So we get together and we sell at large events that there's no way we would be able to have a booth by ourselves. Not just because we can't afford it, but because, you need somebody to relieve you. You need somebody to pick up the ball when your energy starts to flag,
Mm-hmm.
they're marathons, not sprints. um, getting through an entire weekend of interacting with people.
Mm-hmm.
So we have basically put together a group. We keep selectively adding people here and there, but we're again selective because it's not so much that we need you to pay to get in or anything like that, but we want to maintain the same kind of energy. And that's the encouragement and the, yeah, let's do it, go, go,
Mm-hmm.
it's a team effort and we don't want that to, be watered down.
Absolutely. And I love that. I mean, I love it when I hear stories of authors uniting and getting together and charging each other up and supporting each other. But it's so smart what you're doing. I mean, you are going to these events where, often for authors, it's hard to pay for a big booth that's like thousands of dollars when you only really profit like a couple of dollars every book you sell. So doing it together and splitting that cost, and then also being fans of each other's books and passing readers around to what they like, it's just it's great. It's like working together and it's supporting each other and it's splitting costs to make things more cost effective, and it's like giving yourself a chance to take a break during these long weekends, because most authors are introverted, so it takes a lot of energy to talk to people at a whole long weekend event. So that's a great strategy, and I love the name. How did you come up with the authors with altitude? That's so smart.
We started as Gifted with Words because we were going to the Colorado Country Christmas gift show. Quite the mouthful, but since we were already going to a gift show, we were trying to say, this is what kind of gifts we have in this booth is we're gifted with words.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gifting words to people, but our gift is words. So we thought that was a marvelous play on words, and it worked for a little bit, but people weren't 100% sure what we were doing. It was a little too, not quite clear enough. So when we said authors, then everyone was like, oh, this is who you are. This is what you do. And then the altitude is because we're all from Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're all a mile or better. So
I like that. And it's sort of like a play on attitude too, which is kind of cool.
Yes.
You're all women with positive energy supporting each other. And, you got that, snazzy girl power thing going on, which is pretty cool. So it's really smart. I've really enjoyed learning about your group and the things that you guys are doing. I wanted to ask you too, like you said that before you really got in there and decided I'm going to be an author, you immersed yourself in the culture and the community, and you educated yourself, and you learned, and you met these great women that also supported you in your endeavors. What advice would you give to an author that's just starting out?
I would say it's going to depend on the area you are in. Colorado is genuinely one of the first places I've been that has been hugely supportive of creatives. I don't know what it is about here, when I lived in Arizona, when I lived in Virginia, it was much harder to find the enclaves of people who were into that kind of thing. But we have a series of, they're basically sci-fi fantasy conventions, but they have very strong creative tracks of education at their events. So when you go to these things, you don't have to go and cosplay or dress up. You can go to support whatever your creative endeavor is. Some of these are on, writing itself, getting an editor, how to find, your tribe, what are the common pitfalls of self-publishing, how can you do it easily, what are, what are the things that you've experienced that have made you want to cry? So that way, when the other authors are sitting there going, why am I freaking out about this? You could go, dude, you are not alone, because I freaked out too. Having that group of people that's like, hey, we've been there and we know that you too can do this thing, has been, I, I have no words for how fortunate I feel to have found that group, because even though I'm not writing in their particular genre, they're still hugely supportive of me. I'm now a panelist at a lot of these conventions. So I'm turning that around and becoming an educator in turn, because again, I like to pass the energy on. If I'm going to receive, I feel the need to give back. So it's been really awesome. And I am one of the rare authors who's actually an extrovert. So I will talk to anybody.
Yay!
And I know. And so they're like, oh, you'll do panels and not hide behind the table here. So for me, those conventions, like I just had one this last weekend, and those conventions feed my creative spirit instead of drain me. Because I come away going, look at all these passionate people. It's amazing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That just charges my battery.
Awesome. So you would recommend like a beginning author to like get involved wherever they are, find the community of writers, find a tribe, join a group. Like if you're a romance writer, join a local chapter of the Romance Writers of America. Like get out there and find your people, or go to events and conferences.
For me, finding out about those things actually happened because of NaNoWriMo. Because NaNoWriMo is very much about community. And if you get on the message boards or you go to the write-ins, that's where I started to develop my tribe, aside from my couple of girlfriends. And then they were like, hey, if you would like to know more about this, then there's this thing that's like, next month, you should totally go to that. Getting that community from there was honestly the foot in the door that I needed to point me in the right direction. Because, during Nano, you're all encouraging each other and egging each other on. So that spirit carries through to the rest of the year.
That is great advice. Yes, like during NaNoWriMo in November, they have local meetups where you can go and meet up other authors that are participating and write with them and get involved that way. And then it's like anything, it kind of snowballs. Once you find your people, you find other avenues and ways to educate yourself. That's great advice. Thank you.
And for those of you who don't want to go meet new people, you can they have such a huge online platform now. You can chat online. So that's a great way to, feel things out without having to jump in, and cowabunga into the whole thing like I did.
Yeah, that's great. So you can dip your toe in, or you can just rocket launch in there like JD did.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And I always like asking these questions to a fellow author. So for you, what has been the hardest part about being an author? And then on the flip side of that, what's been the very best part for you?
The very best part has been getting to immortalize a lot of the animals that have been in my life, mannerisms that you don't want to see pass away, because unfortunately that's part of being with animals, is they don't stay forever. So being able to memorialize them has been an amazing part and has fed me pretty heavily. But really, I enjoy the writing, getting to know these people that live in my head. So that's been I love that part. I love getting to be in this own world that I've made for myself. The hardest part, to this day, I still curse whenever I have to format my books.
Mm.
Because technology and we just, I love it, but I want to chuck it sometimes. So that is the one part that makes me a not very nice person. My husband just avoids me that entire day. He's like, no, she's good. I'll throw her chocolate from a distance.
Yeah, keep her fed.
Exactly. Just don't disturb her, because God bless Word. If you move something, something else moves. And but yes, that's been the hardest part.
So I've recently discovered a program called Vellum. Have you heard of Vellum, where I can take my Word manuscript and take it over to Vellum, and it actually formats the book for ebook and paperback for a one-time price for the software, and it's not that expensive, and it does everything for you, and it's very easy to use. Formatting used to make me want to rip my hair out too, or then you have to pay a designer, and it's very expensive to do that. But Vellum has been like a go-to great resource. I think it's like $300, but you have it forever, and it can cost more than that to format yourself, or pay someone to format for you. So it's a very easy program to use. It does all the front matter, back matter, middle chapter. You can choose different fonts. It does the page numbering for you, which I know you don't like. So anyway, it's a good resource if you want to check out something that might make your life simpler.
It probably would. I have a hard time because my chapter headings are images. So it makes it slightly more complicated. So it's harder to feed into other programs because I still have to sit there and place the chapter headings correctly. So I will certainly look into it though, because I haven't worked with it yet. But I was working with Word because it was what I already had.
Word is pretty monstrous for formatting. Yes. I like to write it. I like to use it for my manuscript, but not for formatting. But I believe Vellum has where you can insert images. So that might be exactly what you need. So you can check that out at your own time. But it's the nitty gritty stuff of being an author that you don't realize until you get in of the thing. It's like you have to get a cover designer, like you were talking about the rebranding, and then the formatting and all those little things, which are great pieces of the puzzle, but it's just, you got to take it little baby step by baby step by baby step.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So here's the other thing I was curious. What might a reader be surprised to learn about you? It can be anything.
I would say something my readers might be surprised to learn is when I am in the middle of a book, my characters tend to affect my dietary choices. So I find my main heroine, her one vice as far as food is Oreo cookies. So I went through the first 4 books eating quite a few. Because again, you don't tell the girl in the armor, no, she will beat you up. But the other thing that I ended up doing, and I already drank a lot of tea, but I wanted to find something that I felt like she would really enjoy. So I have a tea that it actually goes out as part of my Kickstarter, and comes with nifty mugs.
Oh, cool.
She has a particular Welsh brand of tea that she really likes because that's her heritage and that's what her family serves. So I got completely and totally into that tea. And then now that I'm working on book 6, the heroine really likes to drink chai. So I find myself drinking a lot of chai. So it very much will be my characters demand to be fed. In book 5, I was eating, she's Canadian. So I found myself invariably looking for poutine. Like if there was poutine on the menu, I was having it. My husband was laughing hysterically. He's like, look, there's poutine. I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm having that. Yeah, her one vice was like French fries and potatoes. So I was like, oh, okay, this is why my butt is getting bigger while I write. But yeah, so it's very funny how they demand to be expressed and they demand to experience certain things. If I'm walking through someplace, I'll smell something which I don't actually find appealing, but one of my characters will go, I really like that. What is it? So I've gotten like colognes, what does a guy smell like? Well, that guy right there. And to my husband's vast embarrassment, I will walk up and ask a guy what he's wearing because I'm like, I need to know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's research.
It is research, and and we all do it in different ways. And I love that your characters demand to be fed. That's so cool. And I wanted to ask you too. You touched on Kickstarter a couple times, and I didn't ask you about that. Talk a little bit about what you're doing with Kickstarter. I'm curious.
So when I first started out, again, because the horses take all my money, I couldn't afford to get an editor. And when that was the one thing that my friend Julie was like, look, if you're going to spend money on anything, get an editor. And I was like, okay.
Good advice.
Yes, I write very clean copy. So it's not so much that I needed somebody to crawl through and pick out all the places that I messed up words, but I needed somebody to help me tighten up the storyline and make things cleaner that way. And she said, hey, check this gal out. And that gal and I connected. Finding an editor you can work with is by far one of the hardest but best things you can do for your books. And I said, well, how much will it cost me? And of course, at 120,000 words, that was no joke. So after I had a heart attack, I said, okay, how can we make this happen? And so my friend who I refer to my beta readers very specifically. My alpha beta is actually my friend who's on the cover. And she basically got book 1. And as a female jouster was like, oh my God, are you sure you've never actually jousted before?
Oh,
because now I'm super charged up and I want to go, get back in the armor and do the thing again. But my alpha beta was like, hey, would you be willing to try something like Kickstarter? And I was like, I don't know. I never thought about it. So I got on and did all my research and was like, I'll give it a shot. And if it doesn't happen, well, it doesn't happen. And it did. I basically raised enough to fulfill my rewards and get my editor. And that was all. I had no spare money. But as I've gotten to like book 5, I'm now raising progressively more. And again, I'm keeping retention. So people who have pledged before come back and want the next one. So yeah, that's basically how that started. I'm getting slightly better at the process, but it is genuinely one of the most stressful parts for me because you spend 30 days watching that bar not move very much. And you're like, it's not going to fund and I'm not going to be able to make this book. Because that marvelous storytelling brain that we have also likes to tell us a lot of lies. So it tells you, nobody's going to want this. This is terrible. Who's going to give you money for this? No, no, no. But then it funds and you're like, all right, I can now take the ulcer medication and recover. But it's worth it, and it's part of my relationship building with my readers as well. Because during the Kickstarter, I give them snippets from the story. I bring in rewards that have to do with the storyline. So before I was sending Welsh tea, this book 6, I'll send chai because that will give you a more immersive experience when you read.
So that's great. So everyone that contributes to your Kickstarter campaign gets little goodies from you. Is that how that works, or?
Depending on which reward you pledge at.
I've never run a Kickstarter before, so I'm so curious how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a smart way to fund what you're up to and get your readers involved in the process.
The rewards basically start with, you can just make a pledge and not want to get anything, which I have a couple of family members who like to chip in a little bit, That's how the first one mostly got funded, was the few people that were really interested in the book. And then a few family members who were like, here, I'll throw you 10 or 20 bucks. But now it's mostly readers. My reward levels vary from you're just going to get the ebook, and they always get it in advance of when it's released on Amazon. Same thing with the paperbacks, as I make sure that they get paperbacks before they can order them on Amazon. So, and you can get them just signed. You can get them signed with a personalized inscription. So those are just, add a little bit more money. You can get the mugs. You can get t-shirts. I have t-shirts designed because the jousting troupe in the books sells t-shirts at the Renaissance fairs. Yes. So what I do is I design a t-shirt like they would sell at the Renaissance fair. And then you can get one and say, yes, I am a fan of Gallant Company things. And they always get comments every time I wear them. Mm-hmm. So, there are things that may have personal value to the hero or heroine. This particular one, we actually are going to have two different t-shirts because the heroine in this one belongs to a different sort of troupe. So it's kind of, we have to make sure we get representation for both of them. But it's really fun to see what people respond to and what they attach to, and, kind of spread knowledge of more things. I try to support other small businesses when I'm doing rewards. Mm-hmm. So that way, because I know what it's like to be a small business, and every order counts for something.
For sure.
So being able to introduce people to other small businesses in the process is extra fun.
Oh, that is so smart. You're the first author I've talked to that has done it with a Kickstarter campaign, and that's brilliant. So it sounds like this is something you pair with the launch of, or prior to the launch of every book you've written. It's sort of kind of become like your system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much how it goes.
I love it. Thank you for sharing all that with us. And it's an investment in something really important, which is an editor who helps take your writing and polish it and make it even better and give you feedback that you need. So the fans are investing in a final product that's going to be really worth the investment, So that's
exactly.
It's awesome. It's like full circle.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you're working on book 6 of your series, your jousting series right now, but what are you curious about? Where are you heading? What's next for you in your author career, perhaps after book 6? What are you thinking about?
So I'm currently in a collaboration with a creator from one of the conventions who makes these marvelous stuffed animals. Aww. You can actually see them back there on the shelf behind me.
I do. A little fox.
Yes. So there's a winged fox and there's a winged bunny. Mm-hmm. And she also does Kickstarters to produce these little animals. Mm-hmm. But we turned into this thing where I had bought the bunny to give to my little sister. Mm-hmm. And my mother said, if you're going to send it to her, can you write a story to go with it? And I said, sure. So I wrote the story, whipped one out, and it turned out much more involved and better than I expected. So I sent it to the gal who created them. And she was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I've been looking for. I've wanted to do little books to go with them for the longest time. Would you be willing to work with me on that?
Oh, cool.
So I'm now going to be part of a group of illustrated books. So those are pretty awesome. I find that my characters tend to dabble with whatever I'm curious about. So currently the heroine that I'm working with does belly dancing. So I find myself, like, I have some tapes that I go, and if I need to get in the groove, I go and I, do a couple of DVDs and go, all right, now I feel like I can really write this. And then the next one after that is actually sort of feeds one of my other fun things is I do like to go to the conventions, even though I'm not quite as big a geek as I probably need to be to hang in that area. I love the people there. Mm-hmm. So my next group, actually, my heroine really likes going to those conventions and is a video game player. So my husband's satisfied with that because that means I might actually spend some time with them.
You're a very busy lady, and I love it. I so love how you speak about your characters and how they infuse like experience into your life, and then how your curiosity is kind of infused with them. And I love the story of connecting with, the right person, loving her work and the plush animals, and then finding a way to accompany her work together and collaborate. It's just so cool. You are so cool. I've so enjoyed this conversation. So JD, will you share with us where people can find you and your books?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. I am under JD Harrison. I have a fan page there. You can also go to the Gallant Hearts Gather Here group, and that is a marvelous place to get all the little insights into what's going on in my brain and to interact with other readers who are also looking for the next hit. Mostly it's populated by a couple of my beta readers who are very ravenously waiting for me to write the next chapter, because I have one beta reader who gets them every time I finish a chapter. So she's like, hurry up, I need more. But it's a lot of fun. There are things that are very specific to, jousting that maybe you've never seen before. So I try to share pictures there so you've got some visual reference, and there's different levels of horsemanship that go into it. So one rider may make an entirely different choice than another. So it's fun to be able to share all the things that visually go into the book. And then you can also find me at www.gallanthearts.com. That's my website. And I try to keep it updated, but because I'm running it myself, it usually is one of the last things to get done.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing is you're super active in your Facebook group, and like people
Yes.
get to see you, hear you, speak to you, know what you're thinking, and see visuals of what's inspiring you, and that's awesome. That's like more real time anyway than a website.
Yes.
So that's really cool. And JD, I have so enjoyed having you on the show. Is there anything else you want to share with listeners today?
I'm going to give you the inscription that I put in everybody's book when they pick up book one. Aww. Never, ever give up on the strength found in a dream.
I love that from the bottom of my heart. I love that. And that is such solid advice, not just for the authors listening in here or the people who love horse books, for everyone, right? We have this one big, beautiful life. What are we going to do with it? I think we need to hear that one more time, JD. Can you say it again?
Yes. Never, ever give up on the strength found in a dream.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And I think that's the perfect place to end this fantastic interview, JD. Thank you so much for the gift of your time and supporting other authors and the beautiful work you're doing and the way you interact with your fans. I wish you tons and tons of success. Continued success.
I wish you tons of success too, Carly, because, we all are in this ocean together, and, getting more sailboats down the way, we can get other people coming along in our wake. So,
I agree.
Just pull other people along.
I totally agree. And I love how you mentioned earlier that there isn't exactly a hub for everyone writing horse books or equestrian fiction, despite, whatever discipline or genre it is. But I truly agree with you that one day we will have a space where there's an equestrian fiction shelf, be it digital or in a bookstore or what have you. But, there will be a space for us, because there's a lot more of us out here than and I think it's not as niche as people think either. There are so many horse lovers in the world, and they're ravenous for the kind of content that we're creating that gets the facts right. No naughty covers with the lunge line hooked to the wrong place, right?
Oh God. So, I'm sorry if I see one more romance cover cowboy with the wrong saddle slung over his shoulder, I'm gonna choke.
I hear you, girl. So that's what we're up to here. We're gonna get the facts right. So
yeah.
Thank you again for the gift of your time. I can't wait to continue following your journey, and I love what you're up to. And thank you for sharing such great information with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Carly. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I hope you enjoy these Q&A sessions with wonderful equine authors who love all things horses and writing, just like me. Visit my website, carlykadecreative.com, where you can read the show notes, and make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you so much for your support. Want a free guide to secrets of horsebook authors? Gallop over to carlykadecreative.com/wisdom to have author advice delivered instantly to your inbox. If you are an author who writes about horses and would like to be spotlighted, please let me know. Visit my contact page at carlykadecreative.com to fill out a request. I'd be happy to have you on the show too. Thank you for tuning in to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. See you next time. I'm your host, Carly Kade. Creative writing makes my spurs jingle.